My name is Ed Thomas. I worked here for 18 to 20 years, I guess. I've been here for a while. And my area of expertise is basically musical instruments, fine watches and jewelry, esoteric, high-end electronics, computers, just a little bit of everything. I'm known as a professor. If I can't find information, I'll find information. Okay. For example, we have a very fine example of one of my favorite makers. This is a Robert Benedetto. I believe this is a Manhattan. It was actually made for a guitar teacher that we both, the original owner and I share, named Joe Diario, and he bought it from Joe Diario. And this is made for cello woods. It's one of the finest examples of his guitar making craft. His guitars range all the way from $15,000 to almost $100,000. This particular example is probably maybe $42,000. And I loan on fine guitars and musical instruments and vintage. This particular owner is a very fine player on top of that, which is rare because most guys who play really high-end instruments aren't very good players, just collect them because they can afford them. I deal with a lot of musicians, a lot of studio owners who come in and need money. For example, there's guys who, studio's not busy, they need money, keep operation. They'll bring in their high-end outboard equipment or microphones to get a loan on, and I help them out. And we save several studios that way, and it's our pleasure to do it. And a lot of guys consult for software and recording because I own a recording studio and I like vintage synthesizers and analog things like that. So, and I'm a player also, so that kind of helps. And I'm known in the vintage guitar community, and guys like me, I like them, and it's a close community. And I try not to step on anyone's feet because I'm not an active buyer for vintage instruments, so I don't step on their toes. But we do buy instruments, and we have guys all around who want to buy stuff from us. But what I'm saying basically is, people trust us, and a lot of guys go on tour and they don't trust their roommates. I had examples where their roommates pawn their instruments when they're gone. This one guy had a custom-made guitars, and I love custom-made guitars. And says, "You've never seen this guitar before?" I says, "I have seen this guitar before."
But if we need a
I says, "No, you haven't." I looked up the serial number. I said, "Yeah, this guitar's been in thousands of times." And he didn't know that when he was going out, his roommate was pawning his guitar. And the same thing happened to a Rolex. This other gentleman kept bringing his Rolex in, and he went to a party, lost the Rolex, and replaced it. And the guy come in to pawn his Rolex as always. I looked at the serial numbers, like, the serial number's different on this Rolex. Like, what? Same thing, found his roommate brought his Rolex and lost it, and replaced it. So you find some interesting things and some really interesting tension going on sometimes. My expertise in musical instruments and watches came about I've been playing guitar since I was 14 years old, and I fell in love with guitars. I read the guitar magazine, Guitar Player magazine, that you find great instruments through the pawn shop, and that's what Paganini background here. Try to say. Anyway, when I was a kid, I read that.
Like I'm in the country, in the old country.
No, when I was a kid, I read in guitar magazines that the Rolling Stones and all these great rock groups said they found great guitars in American pawn shops. So I went to a pawn shop. I talked my stepfather and take me to a pawn shop. And went to pawn shops, all these great guitars. And I was shocked to find out that the pawnbrokers knew my dad. I guess apparently he was pawning stuff. But I found all these cool guitars and pedals and stuff, so I started buying them. And always had different equipment every week. My friends had the same stuff, but I had different guitars. And I started learning about guitars and what cool guitars Hendrix played and what guitars Santana played, and started buying guitars. And same thing with watches. I went to a swap meet and I bought a Rolex for $200. And it wasn't like a prestige thing, it was a hobbyist thing. It's a bunch of guys who were concerned about the movement, concerned about not as an aesthetic thing so much as it is a hobby, the different years and the beauty of the watch itself. Before the rappers and everyone else turned it into a prestige thing. And that's how I got into that. I learned, I read books, I joined the National Wristwatch Clock Association, I went to vintage guitar shows, and same thing with high-end audio. I got into high-end audio until that point where, the wealthy got into it, I couldn't afford it, but I made great friends on all these fields. So, a lot of times those guys supported me when I had no means to, because they're friends and truly great people in all three fields. Yeah. And you have it. And I learn something every day here, something new. You can't say you know everything. And, it wouldn't be fun. It's always good to discover something new. And that's it.